Hi, and welcome. For those of you who have just joined, we're going to launch the webinar in about a minute or two to let the other registrants join in. Thanks for your patience. Okay, I think we will go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining the webinar today. We are here to discuss labor insights for predictive location strategies. My name is Amy Forbes. I'm the Vice President of Business Development for our Location Economics team. And I'd like to take a moment to let our other panelists go ahead and introduce themselves as well.
Hi, folks. This is Lee Sems, Director of Solutions Architects for Enterprise here at MZ. Our team serve as subject matter experts for workforce data and how organizations consume it. So we have to be a really good resource here. I'll pass the ball over to my colleague, Wayne.
Wayne, might you be on mute?
Yes, thank you, Amy. My name is Wayne Geary. I focus on data science for MZ, and I'm also a university professor at the University of Texas in Dallas.
Great, thanks everyone. So for our agenda today, simple and sweet, we're going to jump into what location economics is and share with you some of the projects that we've been working on both pre, during, and post-COVID. So in brief, what is location economics? Well, simply put, we are a team of applied economic practitioners who love to solve complex location and labor problems for our clients. We curate premium labor data. Over here in this area of the Venn diagram, we curate premium labor market information, economic and demographic data for analysis. We leverage the best-in-class technology tools, which span everything from visualization tools that you may be familiar with, from Esri to Tableau, other mapping applications, all supported by very extensive geocomputation and modeling services and tools that run in the background of our analytical practice. And then all of that is spearheaded by our data scientists, who are spearheaded by Dr. Wayne Geary, who runs this team of location economics. And we've been serving clients together as a team for government, commercial, and private sector clients, including globally for the last 25 years. So very brief slide, what is a data scientist? Everyone here on the call probably knows the name of data scientists and hears about them from one company to another, or one industry to another. But the difference for us is we focus on location economics, and the qualifications defining a data scientist through our practice, we feel is very dependent on the industry. So whereas in data scientists from other companies and industries, their skills, expertise, and the definition of that data scientist might vary greatly. Here at MZ, our data scientists specialize in procuring labor market information, understanding labor market supply and demand, and where to find the best labor markets, and where the workforce is going and changing over time based on the needs of our clients. So every client, even clients within the same industry, have unique drivers for success. And we go beyond traditional site selection to help our clients do more than rank markets. We analyze the business ecosystem from one industry to another to uncover unique geographies of opportunity. How we achieve this, who we are, and how we drive success for our clients is what this webinar is designed to share. So our methodology is our key distinguisher, but it's also what we share openly with our clients. We're very transparent about our data practices, our data modeling, and our results. This transparency lends confidence to decision making and mitigates risk for our clients. So let me walk through very briefly our 3 levels of analysis. So over on the left-hand side, descriptive analytics. So we have clients who've never designed a comprehensive location strategy for their national or global portfolios, and they just simply need information that is visualized for them from any number of sources across their organization, or combined with our premium labor market information or any other economic information and demographic information that we may be pulling into analytical models based on the needs of our clients. So we consider that level of analysis is called descriptive. It's very high level. We're looking across markets from a macro perspective, and we're visualizing that information on maps, charts, and various types of interactive applications. Moving from descriptive analytics is a process called prescriptive or predictive analytics. And what clients love the most about working with us is our transparency through this through the analytical process that allows us to be responsive to their needs. So when you move from descriptive and visualizing data into prescriptive, we're actually making recommendations based on client-driven demand. So we're ranking markets for them, but we're also sharing with them the analytical models in the background that are helping us score and rank those markets. And then once we score and rank those markets, we move from a macro modeling perspective down to a micro modeling perspective, so that we can actually make predictions on markets over 3, 5, and 10 years, so that they can understand where they are now and where they need to go in the future with confidence. So with that, I would like to introduce Dr. Wingary back into the conversation. As I mentioned, he heads our location economics team, and he'll explain the importance of leveraging scientific methods for knowing where to go and why.
Well, thank you, Amy. Well, folks, I'm going to turn off my camera because I'm in northern Alberta in a cabin, as you can see behind me. So I don't want the signal to be drained. So I'm going to go from there. Let me just talk about knowing where to go and why. Knowing where to go and why is not something new. It's something we've been doing for a long time as far as business, individuals trying to figure out where to go to live, where to move to, what school to go to. So location is really important. And you have people like Weber, Alfred Weber, von Thunen, Loesch. These are German scientists from the 40s and 50s and 60s who have been thinking about these things well before we do today. But the difference is technology and data make a huge change in how we do it in practice today. One of those things, let's go through those components. Now, training, you have to have the right people in the right training, the right education. Today we're using Monte Carlo simulation, we're using regression, multivariate analysis. So people with the right skills are going to matter. So, and the next component is data. So when we think of data, we think of not just one set of data, but multiple sets of data. And for us, our key bread and butter is labor data. But we don't just use labor data to make decisions about where to go and why. We include other data and the tools. The tools to do the research that Amy just talked about in the different ways, whether it's descriptive, predictive, or other, we need the right technology stack. So whether we're using a statistical software, a visualization software, or a back-end business intelligence tool, we're bringing those all together with many sets of data. And that culminates in what Amy talked about, decision science and data science. And this allows us to do contextual analysis at a very micro level, because you can have a macro level where people are giving you, if you went to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, you get data by MSA or core-based statistical area. And what we do is get it down more to a neighborhood level, down to a zip code level. And what this leads to is opportunity for the business and for the community. And Lee is going to talk more about that data right now.
Thank you, Wayne. And like any analysis, if you put good things in, you get good things out. And so MZ curates a number of data sets to give us both broad visibility into the entirety of the U.S. workforce, as well as granularity of their skills, job titles, education, and employers. So I'll walk through these 6 pillars of our MZ data ecosystem. The first is labor market information. This covers 99% of the U.S. workforce and includes supply data from over 90 different sources published by local, state, and federal entities. MZ has been considered the gold standard for this data for some time, as we actually make this data more accurate, more granular, and make it more recent as it relates to the original sources from which it comes. So again, we have proprietary statistical processes that allow us to clean that data up and make it extremely usable, especially in a recommendation engine. Next, though, is job posting analytics. And job posting analytics is considered demand-side data from hundreds of millions of online postings. And generally, we create filters that allow us to see changes in the need for workers across all industry and occupation segments, skill segments, on a day-to-day basis. So you have a very, very recent, very fresh data set that helps to understand what's happening right now with the need for workers throughout our U.S. economy. Social profile metadata includes aggregate profile information from over 118 million social professional profiles across many different sites out there. And what that allows us to do is to get even greater detail into the supply of skilled workforce. Government entities generally stop short of classifying very specific and very new skills that employees have. However, social profiles tend to have that data: who people work for, what skills do they have, what education do they receive, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So really great, really rich data that we can extract from social profile metadata. Compensation data is formed on a foundation of government data and enriched with a large recent data set from the private sector that helps to understand the impact of skills, job titles, and years of experience on earnings. We have one of the largest, most comprehensive data sets around compensation across all industry and all occupational sectors. It is very valuable in doing location analysis along with cost of living indexes. The MZ Skills Library is a proprietary skills taxonomy developed from a mix of machine learning and biweekly human review of online social profile metadata and job postings. So we actually curate our skills library based on what the market is indicating exists out there, both among workers that possess those skills and companies that are looking for those skills. Finally, MZ Global Data incorporates proprietary normalized job categories and blends global government data with GDPR-compliant social profile metadata and job postings for over 47 countries. Our location analysis has spanned the entire globe, and this data is really valuable in order for us to do that, and also in order for us and our clients to look apples to apples at their job categories across the entire world. Wayne will now explain additional data that we use that's actually curated by custom indicators.
Yeah, so along with the great data that we have, when we're doing contextual and multivariate analysis, it's important to note that for each company, different variables are going to be important, whether it's crime, unionism for distribution, education, getting the right people with the right tech background. All of this is going to matter. So even when we think of a stay-at-home workforce today, which we're now getting questions about, where are those markets? And we get that from the community survey. We build indices from these other key indicators. We bring that together into a multivariate model with our own data. And again, we're able to run that contextual analysis, comparing market to market, neighborhood to neighborhood, and getting down to a neighborhood of opportunity for a business to succeed in a community. And Lee is now going to go on and talk about some application of that.
Thank you, Wayne. We receive a number of questions from enterprise clients regarding location analysis. So for the next few minutes, we will actually review some very recent, very relevant ones that have been very common requests for our team to assist with across actually multiple industry sectors. The first sample that we'll talk about is actually a Fortune 100 property and casualty insurance carrier. And so they approached us directly with three primary questions. The first was they were looking to potentially open new offices or consolidate offices across their entire US footprint. And they weren't really sure how to do that. They struggled a little bit with consuming data in order to not only help advise the business on where they should expand or potentially contract, but also how to meet the company's diversity and inclusion goals. They had really good, really lofty goals, but they really didn't have a good way to advise the business on areas of opportunity or risk. And compensation was a big key to some of the challenges they were having across the nation. Cost of living was kind of throwing them off in a few different markets. And so this team was extremely proficient at using data, but they really needed help in creating insights from data, understanding what is the data saying and what should we then advise the business about this data. So the process that we went through was we initially helped that organization normalize all of their job titles so that they could be benchmarked to the classification system that the government uses to track the US workforce. That's called the Standard Occupation Classification System. It's a really important process for any enterprise organization to do if you're looking to benchmark yourself against the world around you. You need to understand how your employees compare to other employees at other companies and potentially in other industries. So that was the first step. They had tens of thousands of job titles, and so we went through and ultimately normalized those so that they could do so. And then our location economics team built a custom market ranking index for all of their employees to help identify the best markets for talent based specifically on their business needs. So this particular team internally at this organization met with business leaders and asked them, what is important to you to be successful in a market as it relates to people analytics? We took those variables and developed a very specific ranking system just for this company. These market rankings were then built into an interactive web application that is currently updated once per year and allows them to confidently advise their business leaders on regions of opportunity and regions of potential risk as well. The second example that I'd like to go through is also a very large financial services organization. And they had a need at the executive level to adjust a work from home strategy that had been, this was pre-COVID, so this was kind of pre-pandemic. They were looking to make some adjustments to their work from home strategy for different employee categories. And primarily they were looking to decide on a new headquarters. The company itself has a very large geographic footprint and had a number of large hubs, but they were looking to consolidate their work from home workers, to consolidate their field offices, and ultimately to contract the number of headquarters that they had into potentially one, maybe two big ones, where they could house most of their employees together. So MZ created a custom market ranking model, again, specific to this company's needs, that suggested that there was a city outside of their current footprint that was very, very favorable based on the jobs and the skills that they needed to employ. So our group looked at their entire footprint, the cities they existed in now, and did an analysis of those cities. And this company asked us, could you also do a greenfield analysis? Take a look at any city that we're not in right now, or that maybe we just have a small presence in, and let us know if one of those cities actually would look really good for us. As it turns out, one of the best recommendations, one of the top recommendations, was a city that they just didn't have much of a footprint in. So that was obviously really eye-opening for that group. It helped to bring data to the conversation as these executives met with different business leaders internally and said, you know, here's what you're telling us, but here's what we know the data is showing about the people that you're going to have to employ if we're to make this big change as a company. What it also allowed them to do, though, was to make recommendations of which employees should be continued to allow to work from home because their skills were so rare in any given marketplace that was being analyzed. So there were some employees, especially when you see folks in cybersecurity or IT, that have some skills that are just so niche and so difficult to find that they really decided to let those folks continue to work from wherever they are because they couldn't afford to lose them. There were other skills that were more common and that they felt that they could probably backfill if someone was not willing to move for that opportunity or for that new hub location. So the outcome of that was the organization is currently actually working to set up a main headquarters in one of the cities that we recommended, that city outside of their footprint, which is really, really exciting. You know, we enjoy being a part of those projects because it helps to bring data to a really big, really expensive decision that is ultimately an investment for many, many years to come. So what I'd like to do is pass the ball back over to Wayne to discuss the future of location economics as it relates to the impact of health risk indicators on location strategy in light of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic.
Thank you, Lee. You know, what we need to look at today in a pandemic economy is how COVID is impacting each and every market. We hear a lot of talk in the media in March about the different pieces of the puzzle. Those pieces were density and the workplace and preconditions. And for the first time, we heard the word epidemiologist. And now everybody knows what an epidemiologist is. And so what we did in March was come up with a model, which we have a macro versus a micro model. We modeled it in every single geographical way we could. So we brought those pieces of the puzzle, the preconditions, which consist of things like taking meds for a cardiological problem, for diabetes, people who smoke, vape, those kinds of issues, those preconditions that the media spoke to, we have information on. And so we started to model that in to other key indicators and themes like density, how tightly and how close do people live to get and interact with each other each day. We started to talk about workplace interaction, those jobs that are in where people are in close proximity to each other. So we started to put that in. And then we started to talk about population, health, age, and income play a big role, obviously, with the 60 plus population being more at risk. So we brought those together into a multivariate model, and we started to compare that to the prevalence of the disease. So we're able to then have a better understanding for business operations. And though that understanding was, we looked at the prevalence. There it is. There. That's almost a live shot. Something I snapped off of our application, which incidentally we've given out to the public for use in helping make decisions. But what this allows is us to make the community at a very micro level to make better decisions. We hear in the media as well, you know, this state is X, this state is Y, this one's doing better than that, better. We need to close everything in the state. Well, is that really necessary? When we look at Texas and we see really the two, we know exactly where the key issues are going on, and I'll show that in just a few seconds here. But what it allows us to do to have an index is to know the unique risk to the community. We also are able to not focus on it just being a state, it's a community and a location issue, especially for people looking to set up new business. And it's a building a strategy to protect the most vulnerable. We wanted to make sure we included that as well. And it allows local community leaders to understand and lead with good information and good data. This also allows really site selectors to assess locations and risk and accuracy in getting people to the right location for their own business success. When we look at the model in this slide, and I wanted you to know the last slide, sorry, Amy. When we look at the model in that slide, we see that we've divided the country up into core-based statistical areas. That is just one level of analysis that we've done. And those are the 36 major metropolitan area with 1 million or more in the workforce, in labor force. And so that was our first look at the disease and how it was impacting, because the disease was impacting 75 to 80%, and still is, of those major metropolitan areas. And when we see that, when we compare it to the prevalence. If we go to Texas, the next slide, I wanted to use Texas as an example with respect to COVID. And you can see that our model, the left one is our model, and the darker shaded areas really is where we were predicting there would be impact. If you note in the disease itself, in the prevalence of the disease on the right, which is we get a live feed from Johns Hopkins daily, and so we overlay that with our model in the application that we've put out to the public, and we can see that it is very accurate. In fact, it has a 0.80 correlation coefficient, which means we were actually able to predict what would happen throughout the United States. We're able to predict that it would be extreme in New York. We were able to predict in every single community where it would have a severe impact. That said, you can see that there are communities with this example that are a higher risk for COVID based on those key themes like population health, workplace interaction, density, and preconditions that allow, when you break it down into those themes, you're also able to make those strategic decisions. Like community leaders can make those strategic decisions about which of those themes may even be more impactful, because we've separated those themes and aggregated those themes into an index. So when you go and have a look at that, it's a very good tool. And I believe it's a feature component now for when we do location economics and site selection. This risk will continue. This risk index is not just relevant to COVID-19, but really to any health risk going on in any community across the United States. And now we'll go to the next slide. Sorry.
Thank you, Wayne. Yeah, so that concludes the different stories and use cases that we wanted to share with you today. And we're going to open it up to questions for those of you who would like to stay for the question and answer section. For those of you who want to peel off at this time, we want to thank you for taking the time to join us today. And we hope you learned some new information about labor market information and how we combine that with location information in new ways to solve problems, be more responsive, and respond to uncertainty with data. We also have a quick poll that we are throwing up on the screen right now that we would love for you to participate in. And in the meantime, some of the questions that have come through, one of the initial questions I think Dr. Geary already answered, which was, are we updating the health risk index as the spikes are moving every week? And as we mentioned, yes, we're updating that and have live feeds of our application on a daily basis. That information that we shared in those 4 slides is also public facing. So we have that available to any of you that would like to view that on our website, and anyone who's not participating in the webinar. And then for clients as well, from that information that we post publicly, we also are doing a number of different projects for state governments and municipalities, down to the zip code and neighborhood and community levels of information on a project by project basis. Another great question is, what is the difference between micro and macro analysis, and why is it important? And I think that would be a nice question for me to pass over to Wayne to give a simple little summary.
Hey, yeah, that's a great question. I mean, a lot of times we get data sort of at the state level, we get it at the country level. The way we look at location and location economics is on a much more micro basis. And so when we sometimes take a first cut at it and look at the larger geographies, state, country, but then we want to go in to fine tune a location, because you have something called an ecological fallacy. So when you look at data geographically, it could misrepresent at a higher geographical level about where opportunity is. As we focus into a more micro area, we're able to, like a zip code or a block group, we model down to that level to get our clients to the right location and allow them also to see the future, because we're predictive in the next 10 years, and we want to make sure they're going to the right, literally that right community for their business operation.
Great. Thanks, Wayne. Another great question is about skills. So we've talked a lot about labor market information, and that has to do with occupations as well as skills. So this is a question I'd like to pass over to Lee. So can you talk more about why skills matter for the type of analysis and projects that we run?
Yeah, this is actually a really fantastic question because we're starting to understand that job titles are actually becoming less relevant in the marketplace than the skills that individual workers possess. In fact, job titles can be very arbitrary and very different, even among companies within the same industry, certainly within other industries. So skills really are the new language. This is really at the core belief of MZ as a company now, and why we've invested so much time, energy, and resources into developing out good skills taxonomy. And also we have a data science team that does skills clustering analysis, which is hugely interesting. But to answer the question around why skills should be involved in location economics, this is the way that organizations are looking at their people. So, we sit at the table with chief technology, chief information officers, CEOs when they're making these decisions. And some of the things that we hear from them are, well, we employ software developers like many companies, but our software developers are primarily focused on cloud skills. That is the people that we hire. We're not interested in standard developers or those with Ruby on Rails experience. We're looking for very, very specific types of people that have very specific backgrounds. And so when it comes to location analysis, we know through looking at this data on the supply side and sometimes on the demand side as well, that there are areas of the country that contain people that have certain skills based on the companies that employ them there, based on the industries that are big there, and based on a number of other different things. So if we were to just pick a broad brushstroke at software developers, it may not actually do justice to the decision of, well, we actually need cloud developers, and we can only pay this much. So where does that mean for us that we can actually have great success? We can't pay San Francisco rates. We can't pay DC rates. So where else is good for developers that have cloud experience, and how can we incorporate that into a location analysis? That's really why skills are so important. Certainly occupation level, industry level data is really, really valuable, especially for strategic workforce planning initiatives and really looking at a broad brushstroke across your business. But from experience, we're seeing business leaders who are involved in these conversations coming to the table and saying, hold on, wait a minute. We hire very specific people, and we want to make sure that we can continue to hire those very specific people if we make a decision to open an office somewhere or to shut down an office somewhere and consolidate somewhere else. So hope that answers your question, but we believe that skills are the new most important thing in the labor market.
Great, thanks, Lee. So that concludes the leading questions that we wanted to share with all of you today. As Lee mentioned, of course, follow up with us with any additional questions you have. I posted his email here. And for all of you who have stuck with us throughout this entire webinar, we so appreciate your time and thank you for joining. We will be sending out the recordings to all of the attendees and registrants. Thanks again. Have a great rest of your day.